Join us for this week's One Man's Dream Boat segment with Florida Sportsman boating editor George Labonte as we feature anglers who have already launched their dream. Florida Sportsman began these features 30 years ago, and the dreams just keep getting better.
Over the life of Project Dreamboat Television, we've seen a lot of different motivations for fixing up a boat. Today, we're going to look at a boat that's been owned by the same family since 1988, and it's definitely been through a lot of changes and changed hands a couple of times within this family. Join us today to have a look at Gary Oster's 1988 21-foot Steiger craft.
So our family, as I was growing up, I started fishing at the age of 6. We had a number of boats, cathedral hull boats and bay boats and all different sizes, but typically we would fish in Chesapeake Bay, lived in Annapolis. And when my mom and dad retired, they moved to Ocean City, Maryland, and my dad says, I want a different boat, a boat that's got a lot of flexibility, that can go in shallow water and that can go offshore. And so he did all the research, and one of the dominant elements that he wanted on the boat was a hard top, because he didn't want to always have to be out in the sun, and if the rain came, he wanted to be able to stay dry. And so this boat had that feature. So we went to the Annapolis Boat Show in 1988 and met Alan Steiger. After he had had all these boats that he had lined up to take a look at, and he just kept coming back to the Steiger craft. And he purchased this boat, and it became really clear to me that this really is a boat with a unique character. Over the years, my dad, for 25 years, fished this boat, both in the back waters of Assawoman Bay and in the ocean. In our family, he was known as the flounder pounder because he could find fish. And so when we would go out fishing, we knew we were going to be catching.
Since 1988, the Steiger craft has been the tie that bound this family together through their mutual love of fishing and boating. At some point, though, Gary's father decided the boat was going to be a little too much for him to keep up on, and he was going to try and sell the boat.
When I heard that, I was just shocked that that boat was going to leave the family, and I mentioned it to my wife. I already had 2 boats at that time. She says, well, you need to go and buy that boat. And I said, I don't need a 3rd boat. I bought the boat. Bought the boat in 2013 from my dad and decided that since it really did need a lot of work, I was going to go and do a restoration on it and bring it really back up to a much higher standard than what it was. But I wanted to fish it, so I spread it out over a 3-year period. Many modifications, many alterations. None of these things were contemplated in 1988 because some of those ideas or technologies didn't exist then. So something as simple as adding an outboard bracket and framing in the transom was something that was really important to me. I didn't want to be hauling a cooler every time, so I put a fish box in the floor. I removed all the wires, rewired the whole boat. Also did a lot of electronics upgrades. So for me, it was about improving it and making it really fishable for me in Chesapeake Bay because I was still living in Annapolis.
And at some point, it was time for him to retire, and he brought the boat with him to Florida, where the family continued to enjoy the boat in its new home environment down south, until one day, tragedy struck.
So in September of 2020, my wife and I were on vacation, and I get a phone call from Karen, the dockmaster at Sailfish Marina, where the boat's kept, and she's frantic, and she's crying, and I said, Karen, what's going on? She goes, your boat's on fire, your boat's on fire. And I'm driving, and I almost wreck because I can't believe, at first I thought it was a joke, but then I knew it wasn't, because right after that, she sent me a picture of the fire department all surrounding my boat, putting the fire out. 2 things flashed through my mind. Oh my God, the family heirloom. The second, how am I going to tell Dad?
When we return, we continue to learn about Gary Oster's unique and inspiring Steiger craft restoration. Welcome back to Florida Sportsman, Project Dreamboat. Our Dreamboat owner, Gary Oster, has just heard the devastating news that his beloved family heirloom, a 1988 Steiger craft, has suffered extensive fire damage.
There was nothing I could do immediately other than make sure that the boat was secure. Fire department took care of that. There was foam everywhere on that boat, and that caustic foam, if the fire didn't destroy it, the caustic foam did. I called my dad that night and tell him the story. He said, so what are you going to do? like a scene out of the $6 Million Man. We have the technology. We're going to rebuild her.
At some point, we all come to the realization that time catches up with each of us. And based on that knowledge, we're going to be faced with some important decisions in our life. One of these decisions for Gary would involve, do I want to take on a project so large at this point? And he decided he did. However, with the urgency involved in there, it was going to be necessary for Gary to assemble a team of people to bring this thing together in a timely fashion.
The process of restoring the boat back to what it was or better was pretty complex. The hard top was removed, everything, all the gel coat was ground down. The gel coat at 33 years of age had really started to show its life. And so as part of the restoration, I had 3 coats of all grip installed from the rub rail down and 5 coats rub rail up. That has been great in really making the boat look spectacular and almost brand spanking new. Pulled every piece of wire out of the boat, rewired the entire boat, and its mastery at its highest level, all according to ABYC code. I have a really high level of confidence in all of that, and everything works great. The assembly process was nerve-wracking because after you put it together, it looks so good, you're afraid that anybody's going to scratch it, or like putting the hard top back on. I was holding my breath the whole time, but the guys did a great job. All the glass was fractured from the heat of the fire. So instead of just putting on regular plate glass, I put on tinted glass, and for Florida sun, that has been a really, really good thing for us when we're inside.
Now, Gary was committed to the fact that he wanted to do this job right, and he wanted it to look perfect. In fact, he decided that he was going to make it better than it had ever looked before.
So enhancements that were done after the fire included the fact that the rub rail is different than what I had. I had an all rubber rub rail, so I added the Taco stainless steel rub rail, which is fantastic for 2 reasons. One, it makes the boat pop, and number 2, boy, you can come up right up to the dock. I don't care how ripped up that thing is, and that stainless steel looks at it like, yeah, whatever, and that's really great. The other upgrade is I upgraded the trolling motor that's on the bow. Hit the trolling motor, put it down, hit spot lock. I'm fishing within 30 seconds. I'm not trying to set an anchor and then worry that I'm going to lose the anchor on the debris or hurt the reef. And then number 2, when it's time to go, I'm tired of fishing, I'm not catching anything. I hit release the spot lock, and off I go to the next spot. So that convenience is great. Another upgrade is I put a Dometic refrigerator in, and I have very cold beverages. I don't have to worry about the temperature of the beverages.
Now, on Gary's first go-round restoring the boat, he had repowered her with a brand new 4-stroke Yamaha. Fortunately for him, the fire completely skipped the motor on the boat. He was going to continue to use this 4-stroke Yamaha and enjoy the reliability that it had given him already for a few years.
This is really a nice engine. I put the command computer control on the boat, so I'm able to actually show in real time what my fuel burn is, so I know if I want to throttle back, I'm able to do that. I also know to the 1/10 of a gallon how much fuel I'm going to take. That Yamaha is really quiet, it's super efficient, and in fact, a lot of times when I stop and fish and set the trolling motor, I forget that the motor's still on because I can't hear it.
When all was said and done, after all of Gary's hard work and dedication to keep this legacy alive, 4 generations of the Oster family are still enjoying the boat, from his grandchildren all the way to his 91-year-old father.
My brother Scott and I fish this boat every week, and once a month we pick up Dad and take him fishing. Dad's balance is a little off, and his eyesight is a little off, but we have created this program we call concierge fishing for him. We sit him in the chair, hand him a rod, make sure he's got bait on the hook, and as soon as he pulls off fish, into the box it goes. But he never has a bigger smile than when he's on Albert Sea on his boat. This boat has now fished 4 generations of the Oster family, from my dad down to my granddaughter. This is why you do what you do with the boat.
Boating and fishing as a family activity is really a good way to keep families together. And after spending the day with Gary and hearing his story, it was really inspirational to me to see how much he was willing to go through to keep that legacy alive in the Oster family.
After an initial investment of $19,300 and spending approximately $54,000 on repairs and custom modifications, the cost of Gary's dreamboat comes to a total of $73,300.